My name is Vicky Halls, and I want to talk to you about euthanasia. Now, I know this is a very difficult topic, but it's a necessary one. There are many millions of unowned cats around the world, more than the number of cats that live as pets. The cat's ability to reproduce, even in very difficult circumstances, means that numbers continue to rise, fueled by an increasing demand for pets, often without considering neutering, and a lack of joined-up thinking on humane population management. All organisations and individuals supporting unowned cats, and there are many, have an ethical responsibility to provide them with good welfare. That applies whether they are trapping, transporting, neutering, and returning cats in TNR and community cat programs, or whether they house cats with a view to adoption, or whether they run sanctuaries where cats remain that have nowhere else to go. In all these places, there will be cats that are silently suffering, both physically and mentally. Many cannot be made better because of lack of veterinary care, funds, expertise, homes, or suitable environments. Unfortunately, in some cases, there are other barriers, lack of knowledge, and inability to accept that euthanasia can be a positive welfare outcome, or simply because it feels too difficult. It's not because people don't care or don't have the right motivation. Let me explain. Cats' natural behaviour is to be highly aware of their environment and to protect their vulnerability. They are masters of disguise when stressed, ill, or in pain. A cat in a homing centre is in a strange and stressful place, but assessing suffering is difficult. Physical suffering in the period leading up to death should not be inevitable. When such suffering cannot be effectively reduced or prevented, humanely ending the life of the animal, euthanasia, must be considered. Probably the easiest end-of-life decision, if there is one based on obvious physical suffering. The mental or emotional aspect of welfare is an additional dimension that must not be ignored simply because it's difficult to assess, or because acknowledging its presence means that tough decisions need to be made. In human medicine, the assessment of welfare incorporates negative feelings including fear, anxiety, sadness, and depression, as well as the patient's ability to cope. Consideration of these feelings, as far as we can understand them, is now also included in the assessment of animal welfare, and needs to be based on knowledge of the biology of the species, and in particular, the methods used by animals to try to cope with difficulties. We need to recognise the signs that indicate cats are coping or not coping. In simple terms, for quality of life to be good, individual cats must be able to control their interactions with their surroundings and express their natural behaviours, and this can be very difficult in a cage or pen. It comes back to understanding what cats need, and how those needs change according to the spectrum of lifestyle that exists in the species, from feral cat to pet. Not all cats are suitable to be or would enjoy being pets. It wouldn't be the right thing for many to be forced into pet homes or exposed to the constant presence of people because we, as humans, think we know best. It's not right for cats, incapable of living comfortably as pets, to be kept in cages. We should look for solutions that meet their needs instead. If a cat's mental well-being is reduced, for example, those that are continually stressed because they have difficulty in coping with their environment, this can also be considered poor welfare. They feel overwhelmed. They experience a low mood and lack of interest in their surroundings and things they previously liked. Cats confined in cages or pens for prolonged periods become withdrawn and non-responsive. Poor mental well-being and distress are also associated with a reduced immune response and increased risk of disease, leading to impaired physical health too. Helping cats is not just about removing them from a bad situation and placing them in safe confinement. Cats live in the moment. They don't understand the motivations of humans keeping them confined today so that they have a better chance at life tomorrow, And this needs to be considered when assessing quality of life. For example, keeping a cat in a cage for years in the hope of providing a future life worth living is not a good life now. Therefore, simply minimising or resolving negative physical or mental states is not sufficient for good welfare. There needs to be positive experiences too. Confinement has its place, but there are important limitations and consequences for some cats, which we must acknowledge. So that's great in theory, but everything becomes challenging when the number of unowned cats keeps rising and the demands on the sector are increasing. It's never ending. Some of you will have legal restrictions. Some have no choice but to take all cats into care. Others are just responding, understandably, to the crisis of overpopulation. So what happens when cats get sick or stay in care for prolonged periods? We need to accept that despite our best intentions, this compromises their welfare. To prevent suffering that cannot be resolved, decisions need to be made. The goal of that decision is to find a home as quickly as possible, but if this is not possible or likely any time in the future, then euthanasia for welfare reasons should be considered. And that's tough, to say the least. Nobody wants to end a cat's life, especially if they've been caring for the cat for some time. Staff and volunteers who have been in this situation, myself included, know what I mean when I talk about compassion fatigue, moral distress, guilt, hopelessness, and that awful sense that none of us got into this work to end lives. We want to save them. But our difficulty in making these decisions causes problems for cats. End-of-life decisions can be made too late or not made at all, and that causes suffering, and that's an unpalatable truth. And we can argue, where there's life, there's hope, or say things like, I can't play God, I can't decide when life ends. And as we resist making that decision, cats continue to experience physical or psychological pain day in, day out. If we can't end life, we must end suffering by working very hard to find a better outcome. So how can we change the sector mindset from anti-euthanasia to anti-suffering? I'm going to attempt to answer two questions. Firstly, how can we make this easier for people and better for cats? And secondly, how can we avoid the need for such decisions to be made in the first place? To answer the first question, we need to ensure that everyone working with cats can recognise what suffering looks like and what constitutes quality of life for cats, both in the moment and in the future for any particular individual. We need to acknowledge the range of both positive and negative experiences that a cat may have while in care. And to do that, we need to immerse ourselves in what matters to cats and how they experience the world. It's very different to my or your perspective. And once we can assess this, and we judge the cat's quality of life as one worth avoiding or worse, then we act and do something to fix it. Can we find ways to reduce end-of-life decisions by improving quality of life? Yes, we can. We need to find homes for cats as quickly as possible. We have to be proactive. We need to recognise that we can only do so much. We can't save all the cats. We can limit intake to avoid overcrowding, which reduces the incidence of distress and susceptibility to disease. We can enhance the environment from a cat's perspective, ensuring that every cat has somewhere to hide. And we can remove barriers to adoption. These are just a few of the many things we can do to improve quality of life and reduce the need to make end-of-life decisions. The answer to the second question is even more empowering. How can we avoid the need for such decisions to be made in the first place? We need to start working differently. We need to recognise the value of learning. None of us were born with an innate understanding of the cat. There's no shame and saying that all of us can provide better care by seeking out new knowledge. International Cat Care's cat-friendly homing model can provide you with a framework to work with. Cat-friendly homing has the tools to help you transition to a new way of working that puts cats front and centre. Wherever you are in the world, whatever your challenges or resources, you can embed at least some of the elements in your working day, and prolonged cat suffering can be prevented, so end-of-life decisions will rarely need to be made. In easy sections, cat-friendly homing training will take you through all the aspects of intake, care and outcome that you need to know to improve the welfare of cats. You will help even more cats, and they will move through your homing centre quickly to the outcome that suits their individual needs. The other really important thing we need to do is understand the significance of the bigger picture. Why are there so many cats? Where are they coming from? We need to actively look at cat population management and how we can stem the flow. We need to start working at root cause level and not just keep firefighting the symptoms. You may say that this doesn't apply to you. You would never make an end-of-life decision anyway. Cats in your care don't suffer. They're all fine. You may be legally restricted regarding what criteria allows euthanasia. You may just not be able to even consider this as an option in your wildest dreams, but please, at the very least, take some time to consider this. What does suffering look like in the cat? A species that is self-reliant and naturally hides pain, both physical and psychological. Can you recognize it? Can you relieve it? For more information on this topic, read the paper Cat-Friendly End-of-Life Decision-Making, Euthanasia, How to Avoid It, and When to Use It to Support Cat Welfare.